All right. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe for daily Indoor Football League content. Today, we are joined by head coach of the Iowa Barnstormers, Dave Mogensen. I mean, going into year two, man, you know, it's got to be exciting. Playoff appearance last year, and now the free agency feels like it's really been heating up for you guys. You're bringing back a lot of talent from that playoff team last year. Just talk about building this roster for the upcoming year.
Yeah, I think, it was an exciting year. It kind of feels like it was forever ago, even though it wasn't that long ago, but also I feel like this offseason has lasted forever. So the fact that we're less than a month away is awesome. But yeah, we were able to return. It's good and bad. So we were able to return some quality players from our team last year: quarterback, middle linebacker, running back, some defensive linemen, wide receivers, all across the board. Our kicker, we think the best kicker in the league, which is great for us, but it's also a little bit disappointing because we want those guys to get better opportunities. So, we're actively, if you go on my socials, I'm pumping out those guys' names. I'm tagging XFL teams and USFL teams, and I'm trying to get those guys opportunities. So we're happy to have that core back. I feel like, some of the guys we got back are really quality players in the IFL that will be, all league category guys that are in that discussion. So Darius-James Peterson, Ian McBurrow, Jordan Baldwin coming back at DB, Chris Robertson at defensive line, Gabriel Rui as a kicker, Eric Thomas and Keyslow Smith at wideout. So we have a good core of guys coming back, which is always great. At this league, because it's a developmental league and people are trying to get to the CFL or the XFL, the USFL, or obviously the NFL, it's not always the case where you can bring back that many guys every year because, guys have to kind of wait. Some guys get opportunities, which is great. We had our Darius Stewart get an XFL opportunity off of last year's roster, which is awesome. And some guys have to kind of figure out, what's next in life after playing in this league for a couple of years and kind of go there. So for us to get 10, 12 guys back is really awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. When you're putting the roster together, is there at all, are you looking at just talent, or are you looking at, this is a guy who, if he performs well, he's going to immediately get picked up? Are you looking at a guy who really needs to prove himself? Because I assume you don't want to just sign a guy who's going to be in camp for a couple of weeks or only play a couple of games and then leave. Is that at all part of the, I guess, recruitment process, the scouting process for you?
No, I think so. From recruiting for us, we are big on production. So whether guys, their college production, most guys we're recruiting off of college film. Here and there, we'll get a guy. We've got Dave Calderon's coming back. He played a year in the CIF before he came to the IFL. So we watched some of that film. That was, his 2021. He was in the CIF. But we put a lot of value on production. Most coaches and staffs have boxes. So if you are a quarterback for, say, I need to wait, I need him to have these measurables. I kind of don't really care about that at our level. I want a guy who produces. Look at our quarterback. He's 5'10" and some change, and Darius-James Peterson, but his college film, he produced running, throwing, touchdowns. He had production. So we put a lot of value in production. And to your point about guys leaving, we really pride ourselves on being a stepping ground place, and we want, stepping stone place. We want guys out of here. So I don't put any stock in that. I even recruit guys saying, hey, if it's 3 or 4 games and you're just killing it, and all of a sudden Canada wants you, I'll help you pack your bags and get your flight to Montreal or Winnipeg or wherever, man. I mean, that's fantastic for them. And obviously it'll hurt us in the short time frame, but it'll help us down the road. So it's some negative short term for better long term, because the more guys we can help place at higher levels, the better it is for recruiting in years following.
100%. And the partnership with the XFL is super exciting, just for exposure for the league as well as the league's players. But the big news, I guess it was last week, was the announcement of the return of the AFL. Personally, I am super skeptical about it, but there is that obvious connection between the Barnstormers and the AFL. You guys are staying put in the IFL, but just your thoughts on another spring league, another indoor league, and kind of where the IFL fits into it, because I feel like it's almost too late for the AFL because of the partnerships the IFL has started to make with other professional franchises like we've seen in Frisco and Vegas.
Yeah, I definitely think the IFL is the premier indoor football, arena football, whatever spin you want to put on a football that's played on a small field indoors. We're the best. IFL is the best league. Are there some really great players in like the NAL
Yeah.
that probably would do well in the IFL? Yeah, there are. There's a handful of great guys in every other league that probably could play well here. But from totality, from top of the roster to the bottom, no other league can compare with the IFL. And we have proven to, have growth and market guys and be that stepping stone place for guys who aren't making those other rosters in career type places. The IFL is not a career place. It's a place where you come and get filmed to get out. CFL, you can have a career. Maybe the XFL and USFL, they can continue, and obviously the NFL. So, the announcement was big. It was exciting. It was a lot of people in my head, a lot of people that know of the AFL but didn't
Right.
really follow it, because if they had followed it, they'd have known that teams like the Barnstormers and the Rattlers or the Jacksonville Sharks or the Orlando Predators or the Albany Empire are still playing.
Yeah,
They
they're
haven't stopped
still
playing,
here.
So you can tell though. Yeah, so there's like this big hoopla and stuff, and for people that jumped on that train because they saw it on their timeline on whatever social media, but they're not going to watch a game. They're not going to buy tickets. So they're not really probably true fans of it. But, we are really happy in the IFL. We have no indication at all we're going to even consider going to the AFL. One thing people don't remember about the Barnstormers left the AFL before the
Right.
second folded. Like Jeff Lamberti was our owner then. He's our principal owner and team president. He's a very successful lawyer, businessman, a lot of stuff. He saw the writing on the wall and he got out of the AFL before the second time of it folding.
Yeah.
So, we've been there, we've done that. We believe in the IFL. We believe the IFL is going to continue to grow. And if anything, maybe this can solidify the fact that the IFL is the best league. If the AFL comes back and we're still, rocking and rolling and growing and stuff is really kicking like it is now.
Absolutely. And then just kind of talking about your journey a little bit, because you've kind of worn a ton of different hats. You haven't been a football lifer, so to speak. You've worked in a couple of different industries, and then you get into the indoor game. And I feel like the early trajectory of your career, most people who get into that level of indoor football eventually find their way out. But you are kind of this outlier who has continued to rise through the ranks, and now head coach of arguably the most storied, alternative football franchise ever. Just what does that mean to you?
I wouldn't even say arguably. I mean, we are
Yeah.
the brand of indoor football. The Barnstormers. If you had a family feud question about naming an arena football team, I venture to guess the Barnstormers would be the number one answer, just from random people on the street. My story is unique in a couple of ways. So it's a great story to tell. My first foray was a high school. I was coaching high school football in Milwaukee, and there was a team called the Milwaukee Bone Crushers in this Continental Indoor Football League, kind of like CIF level. And they had an ex-Packer as their head coach, Gilbert Brown, big hoopla, new team. And then they were terrible for fired Gilbert Brown, and they hired a friend of mine as the GM. And he had to get a staff, and he called me and said, "Hey, you want to come coach indoor football?" I'm like, "I don't know anything about indoor football, but yeah, sure. You're going to pay me to do it? Cool." So I come in there, I do that. I parlay that into a couple years with another team. And then 2010, this is CIF kind of level. These are not teams that had really great ownership. So the Bone Crushers folded. The team I joined that we had a lot of success with, my first coaching against Billy Back was 2010 in the CIFL. He was with the Cincinnati Commandos. I was with the Wisconsin Wolfpack. They beat us in the championship game. 2 weeks later, that team folds. And in this industry, it's not lucrative, right? We're not making a ton of money. So as an assistant coach, it's not something that you can just. I had kids and stuff, and I couldn't just support them on that. So I always had my regular job on the side. And then I was kind of out of my element with teams that were local enough to me to keep my regular job and coach that level of football. So I had opportunities, teams that wanted me to go Texas and Colorado and all these places, but I wasn't going to quit my job and leave my family for that nominal amount of money. So I went to college at that point, started coaching in college for a while. I think 5 or 6 years I was just coaching in college, still involved in football and stuff, and just didn't have an opportunity to coach kids inside. 2018, I move up to Green Bay,
Mhm.
and obviously there's a franchise there. And I talked to the coach when I moved. Chris Williams was the coach at the time. I said, "Hey, Chris, I'm moving to Green Bay. I've had this experience. Love to just come and help. I don't have to even be paid, just volunteer, whatever." Chris was on his fourth year of a bad run at Green Bay, decided he didn't want any more help. Ultimately, they go, I think, 0-8 to start the season. They're fired. And
Yeah.
Corey Roberson comes in as interim.
Yeah.
I coached Corey. I coached Corey in 2009 with that Wisconsin Wolfpack team in the CIFL. So Corey and I had continued talking. We'd stayed friends since. Corey called me, said, "Hey, can you come and run this offense for me? We got to get this ship righted." Had a decent 2018, won a couple games, were very competitive in most of the games. 2019, obviously the last time the Blizzard made the playoffs, that was
Yeah.
Corey Roberson as the head coach, myself as the offensive coordinator, Tom Manas, the Albany Empire head coach, as the O-line, D-line special teams guy, some of the talent that we had. And that kept Corey in 2020. We know nobody played in 2020. And then 2021, I had again moved out of Green Bay, took a different job in my regular other career at that point, and kind of was out of it. Tom Manas gets hired. He, again, it's not something where I could pick up and leave. So from a remote thing, I became his assistant GM, really the driving force behind all the player personnel. So the guys we signed and recruiting and all that stuff, and helped, win a championship. I say helped because they won another one last year. I had a minute part of that first one, but what that did in 2021 with coming off of COVID and how the world was so different, it just was like, man, I'm really good at this. I've continued this for, almost 15 years of coaching here, coaching there, having a lot of success everywhere I went. Bone Crushers, we were good, and nobody was getting paid, and that was, there was a
Yeah.
mess of a season. Wisconsin Wolfpack, we went to the playoffs as an expansion team, went to the championship game as a second year. Blizzard, turn that franchise around. Albany, win a championship. So I'm like, I'm pretty good at this. If there's an opportunity that comes up where I can do this full time and find a head coaching job, I should jump on it. And that's when the Barnstormers job opened up. I really just cold applied, didn't call anybody, just sent in my resume, a cover letter, sent it to the email that was in the press release for the job, which was to Julie Pettit. Had a couple of conversations with her similar to this. Had another couple interviews with Jeff Lamberti, some other owners of the franchise. We have a small ownership group. And then I got a call, "Hey, you want to take this job? We think you'd be great." So that's the journey. It's weird. It's different. It's
Yeah.
not your typical, I stopped playing, I started coaching, that became a head coach, and that, my friend Corey Roberson stopped playing, went right into coaching, spent 6 or 7 years an assistant, then got his head coach opportunity. Mine was totally different, but what I liken it to is it helps in this. You have to coach football, yes, but you also have to work on partnerships and sponsorships and be part of the community
Yeah.
and understand budgets. It's not the NFL where you can just spend whatever you want to spend. So me having a lot of success, managing multi-million-dollar organizations in the business world outside of this, I think really helps me be grounded and understand how this needs to work at this level, especially in, the Iowa Barnstormers are a huge name, but we're a small market team.
Right.
Des Moines is a good sized city, but it's still a small market city. So, we don't have this gigantic budget. We don't have 40 coaches for 25. Some of these teams have 19 coaches. It's only 25 guys in the team. We have 3 or 4 coaches. We have to understand how to budget, how to run a business. And I think that helps a lot on my end from knowing that outside of football, how important that is to run a profitable business.
And I think that that's something that gets lost so much in this level of football is, and I think Green Bay is the perfect example because the Blizzard are, aside from 2019, it's actually incredible how long it's been since they've made a playoff appearance, but people still love them and they still get great crowds because they do it the right way and they're involved in the community. So much of success at this level isn't about on-field success. It's about being a partner in the community and understanding how to run the business the right way. And so many people fail on that. And I think that that is what makes you such a asset to indoor football and the Barnstormers.
Agree. 100% agree. So people want your team. They want the team to be good. Like they want the team to be good. But you look at the Barnstormers, and we first came back, and that was the AF2 and AFL years, and then moved into the IFL. They were not having a lot of time without a playoff appearance. Haven't had one since 2000. One of the most lasers and stuff, and they get packed house, 10,000 people to that game. So it's not always, yes, you want your team to be good, but if you look at diehards, you look at Raiders fans or Browns fans or Jacksonville Jaguars fans, like those people are in there. They are dressed up. They're ready to go. If you do things the right way, if you're part of the community and you put the effort in, yes, sometimes the ball doesn't roll the way you need it to roll and you don't get a win. But if you're doing all the stuff the right way, your fans will appreciate that and they'll buy it the right way. A lot of teams in the IFL do it the right way. There's teams like the Rattlers that do it the right way and had a ton of success, or Sioux Falls had a ton of success and doing it the right way. But I think you see the stalwarts of the IFL understand that and they do that the right way. And if you follow Twitter feeds or Facebook feeds or whatever at teams, you'll see guys reading books, guys at the grocery store, guys at a bank, guys at a festival in their jersey, just talking to fans. That's the difference at this level, is especially for if you're a 7-year-old kid, right? And you go to a Barnstormer game, to you going on the field afterwards and meeting Darius-James Peterson after just ran for 3 touchdowns and threw for 2 as a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid, that's to you just as awesome as it would be if you went to a Kansas City Chiefs game and walked on the field afterwards and met Patrick Mahomes. You don't really understand the levels of difference in that. When you get to that 10, 12-year-old, they have a little bit more understanding. But for those young kids, I think that's one thing that Blizzard does probably better than any team in the league. Those there, it's still, to them, it's like meeting a Packer. It's like getting an autograph from a Packer at that 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. So that's part that I think helps at this level. And that's all teams. That's NAL, CIF. Everybody's doing that autograph stuff and you're ingrained in it. But the teams that do it the right way really help elevate their brand.
And finally, Coach, and then we'll talk probably after training camp when your roster is solidified. But just having DJP back at quarterback, there were some growing pains initially, but man, once he got the hang of the game, once he got the speed of the game down, he was electric. And you've got to be expecting, now that he's had a full season under his belt, so many returning weapons around him, you've got to be absolutely stoked about the potential and what we could possibly see this year. It could be a really special season.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of what Darius does on the field and off the field. I get to see what he does behind the scenes. First off, he had a phenomenal year. People don't know that he had a huge injury in our first Bismarck game that most guys probably wouldn't play through. And that was about a 4 or 5 week period where he was probably playing at 60, 70%. I think if he doesn't have that injury, he walks away as rookie of the year. He's on the all league team. He was leading the league in passing and rushing at one point after about 5, 6 weeks. So he was really killing it. That injury kind of set him back a little bit. And once he got off the bye week, he finished really, really strong. I think he had one of his best games in the playoff game, passed for like 250 and ran field. He puts the work in. He does all the stuff that you want. You talk about intangibles with quarterbacks, and it's hard to measure. You got to figure that out. And some of these guys who are first round NFL picks really lack in that area and they struggle. Darius checks off every one of those boxes. And then since the season ended to now, and he just posted some stuff yesterday on his IG, the dude has put on like 10 pounds of pure muscle. He's bigger, stronger, faster. He is going to tear the league up this year. And I am excited to have him as a Barnstormer. I think he's going on a trajectory to be out of here, hopefully, if not in the middle of this season, by the end of the season. I've talked to USFL teams. He was in the XFL draft pool. Canadian teams are kind of looking at him. They want him to. I think people want to see that last year wasn't a fluke. He doesn't fit into anybody's box. He's not 6'2". He's not 215 pounds, but he does run a 4.3, and he can make all the throws. So I think teams want to make sure last year wasn't a fluke, that he can do that.
Dave Mogensen, head coach of the Iowa Barnstormers. Thank you so much for the time today, sir. And good luck in camp. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the next conversation.